Welcome back to Leading for Deeper Learning. I'm Dr. Jonah Schenker. I am here today at the Career and Technical Center, part of the Pathways programs at Ulster BOCES in Port Ewen. I'm super excited today to be joined by three leaders who are going to engage in conversation about career and technical education. We're going to talk about leadership, why it matters in the context of our North Star. We're going to dig into crew, PBL, belonging work. We're touching economic and workforce development. There's a lot of magical things that are happening here at Pathways. They're being driven by a number of phenomenal leaders. Three of them are here with me today. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here with you. We are live. I'm Dr. Jonah Schenker. We're here for Leading for Deeper Learning, our podcast at Ulster BOCES. I am excited to be in the Career and Technical Education Center in Port Ewen. As we've been recording these, we're moving closer and closer to what's important. We're getting to the spaces that have the students. So it is my pleasure to be sitting with three of our leaders here at Ulster BOCES. Peter Harris, Steve Casa, and Karen Riche are all here with me this morning. So we've got a great agenda to share with our listeners who are tuning in, curious about what's going on here at Ulster BOCES, leading for deeper learning, the things that we're doing as leaders to move out of this industrial model of education and into a future which we're all co-designing here together. So let's kick off one at a time. Tell me a little bit about who you are, your role, and I'm going to ask you to share with our listeners. Not everybody knows or understands career and technical education, pathways education. May have heard the term. More importantly, they're probably thinking about a definition of what it meant when they were in school or what their parents are, were thinking about. So share with them one thing. If you had to share one thing with our audience that's magical, that's important about Pathways, career and technical education, I'm going to turn it over to the assistant superintendent first to kick us off, Peter Harris.
Well, what's magical for me about career and technical education, specifically here at Ulster BOCES, is the kids come to us from their component districts and are excited to enter the doors to a program that they've chosen. They get an opportunity to experience a technical skill set development here, but more importantly, they make a new set of friends who have common interests around that trade area, and it's a redignifying experience for them. I've watched it as a dad. I've watched it as the English teacher who had kids that would, go to CTE, and I'd say, what are you learning? What are you doing? And the kids would come in with their pilot's uniforms or their toolboxes, and it was exciting for me then. And then becoming a principal and watching the kids come back with their IDs and identifying with different trade areas and working in CTE for this last many years. It's just amazing to watch the communities that happen within this career and tech building around kids having hard trade skills, professional and personal skills that they're proud to share with one another, and to realize that they now have friends who are studying everything from public safety to culinary arts to manufacturing and auto technology. And I feel like our approach to leading and learning over the last few years has created an environment where we're all abuzz about how skilled trade areas relate to one another, which is part of the work that we're doing. But it's redignifying, it's exciting. Kids see identity and community, and so therefore we do as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And before we toss it on, and as you're kind of sharing perspective on your glance in your experience as father, your work as a principal, kind of sending and receiving back, and now in this, just thinking our journeys have touched along that path. in different relational pieces. And we're gonna get to that. But as I was thinking about, like, this is not new dialogue for us, right? We've been talking about it, but how blessed are we now that we're co-creating. So and as we look across the table, right, like different journey, different relationship, but somehow we're sitting here, right? So, Mr. Casa, tell us what's magical. Tell us a little bit about who you are as a leader.
It's funny because as you were mentioning that and talking to Pete about it, I was remembering when I first came and sat with you and Dr. Corey years ago when I was with NAF, talking about literally what we're doing now. I mean, we're having those conversations. This got to be like 13 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. Yeah. I've been doing this since 1990. I had hair when I started with CTE. You know what I mean? And the whole thing for me with CTE that I've seen, and there's data that proves it, and you guys know I love data, is the fact that, every single young person that comes out of a CTE program comes out with legitimate choice, right? Like if you think about the high school model, most high schools are preparing kids for 4 years of their life, right? It's a college development model. A lot of kids it's not gonna work for. But the young people that we're preparing for 40 plus years of their life, right? I mean, you work for more than 40 years of your life. It's like 95,000 hours, I did the math. So when we're getting these young people ready, and they actually are able to make a choice whether they want to go on to four-year school, which most of our students do here, our young professionals, in fact, over 60% do, they can also go directly into the workforce, which is a powerful thing for our communities, right? We are actually developing our communities and our communities' economies, right? So for me, the outcome focus, and I witnessed this way back in the day when I first started doing this work, when I saw kids from Brooklyn, from James Madison High School in Brooklyn, who never would walk into a brokerage firm in their life, probably, right? Working in a summer internship and getting paid for it and coming back with a completely different outlook on how their lives could be, right? So for me, it always drives to, how do we engage partners? How do we engage kids, right? So that every single young person that walks out of the building has a choice and, can make an honest choice about it. I certainly didn't when I graduated high school. I had no clue.
Yeah. So let's stack these kind of two up and then turn to you, Karen, right? Like redignifying, building young people up, creating connections. We then think about the skills for preparation for life differently. And so now they're prepared to do whatever and connections, right? And opportunities and choice, right? So ingredients for that. And so as we turn to you, Karen, right, a different perspective, new relationships and future longevity in that. So tell our listeners about, and we're gonna get to a little bit about why all of you left X to come to Y. So I want to share a little bit about like your experience, who you are, and then we're gonna dive into some content. So tell us a little bit why you're here and who you are.
I am a product of career and technical education. I'm here because of that. I was a BOCES student myself. I saw the opportunity, and each of you had said this word opportunity, right? A chance to be presented with something that I would have never had an opportunity to be presented with in any other situation. Decided to go to BOCES in my 2-year cosmetology program. I was an excellent student, if I do say so myself. I was an excellent student. Participated in career and technical student organizations such as Skills USA. My teacher saw something in me, so she gave me the opportunity to participate in Skills USA. I remember as I was finishing up my program we got flown out because I was competing in Kansas City, had to fly back early because I needed to walk the stage and graduate, right? So to have that opportunity prior to walking the stage, being licensed before finishing high school was just out of this world. It was awesome. And being in career and technical education for about 20 years or so and serving in different capacities, seeing that young people could have this opportunity themselves. And unfortunately, going through some major, economic disruptions in 2008 and unfortunately COVID-19, it's like everybody kind of saw, or the world kind of saw how important trades are, skills are, right? Because the world stopped. It stopped. It came to, a really abrupt halt. So now how we are highlighting the importance of skilled trades, giving back some of that dignity that it had once lost, and incorporating that in our educational system at a younger age too, giving our students that opportunity. And it really changes the trajectory of their life as it did mine.
Yeah.
Going into the classroom, teaching for quite some time, transitioning into being an administrator, having an impact in some capacity on the educators that I work with and our young professionals. It's really incredible to see the opportunity that's been presented to me, contributing to an opportunity to be presented to our young professionals. It changed my life.
Yeah.
It changed my life.
So a couple things. I'm gonna go back here and then come back to something that you said, because I want to make sure those who are listening, we punctuate this. We have an academic model that prepares students for 4 years of college, but yet in question right now is whether or not that sequence, including college, is preparing students for next, whatever that's going to be in the next 3, 5, and 10 years. And I want to be sure that this isn't actually about humans at any of those levels doing anything wrong. We have amazing people in K-12, P-12, 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges. You've all heard me say, we've got container issues. The container in which we ask them to do their job is tragically flawed, right? So, and we'll get into that context in terms of what you're doing on the ground floor here. I want the listeners to make sure they hear that you went to BOCES, you did cosmetology, you also could do academics, you did go to college, you were a teacher, you went through administrative school, you are a leader. You could have just, if you wanted to, you could have taken that cosmetology and worked. You could have been a business owner, right? So what we're talking about here isn't this is for them, and it's not interchangeable. We're talking about a school or a progression that's preparing students for anything. Career and technical education isn't a secondary option that's less than what we traditionally offer. I just want to make sure I heard it right, that you did all those things.
Check mark.
Okay, check
Yes.
mark. Good.
Check.
Good. Perfect. So that we've got that settled. You all know we've got tremendous changes and shifts happening at the state level. Regionalization, Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations, New York Inspires, rethinking of what it means to be a graduate, revised standards, portraits of a graduate, decoupling Regents exams, thinking about career and tech education experiences for all of that stuff. We've been talking about that for over a decade, right? That's some different language. So we've talked a lot about deeper learning and deeper leading in a context of leadership. I want to get at what does that mean in Pathways programs? How is that showing up? So our North Star at Ulster BOCES, we've talked about that in all of the previous podcast episodes. That's our why. That's all learners, adults and students. Those are conditions about individuals and unique self, about coming together as community, building capacity, cycles of inquiry around reflection and continuous improvement and design work. Underneath that, we've got CREW, equity-based PBL, all couched in belonging work. We've talked about what that means at a systems level. Tell me a little bit about this vision for equity-based, project-based learning, CREW and community structures. deeper learning and creating opportunities for young professionals and the adults in Pathways environments. Let's start with the adults. What are you all doing? What have you been thinking about? How are you planning? How are you living this out on a daily basis in Pathways programs?
I'm going to jump in about crew and the hope and expectation. So the weekly meeting that otherwise we call the faculty meeting is a community circle. It's a crew circle. And it's exciting to see. It starts off with some sort of an icebreaker or community building activity. It becomes a reflective tool. Everybody gets to sit in circle and see one another's faces, see the posture, hear the cadence, the response to one another. And it replicates out so that we're seeing it in the classroom spaces, in the learning labs. I was hearing a compliment this morning about a new healthcare teacher that we have this year, and that every day they're sitting in circle, the kids having conversation, and that early on, the kids from the different individual districts were kind of reticent to talk to one another, but now they come in, they sit down, they excitedly share in their crew circle before commencing with whatever skilled trade work they have for the day, whatever nursing lesson is going on. So it's happening, it's working. The community crew structures that faculty are sitting, lead learners are sitting in, are being replicated out so that the kids have the opportunity as young professionals to learn that. The equity-based PBL model, we believe that we all need an opportunity to access expertise. And the expertise also should be our audience, right? So we learn from the experts and they become our audience for what we're learning, which essentially means Steve and I have been doing a lot of this work. We're bringing together our industry partners who are from our community or the larger industry, even nationally, and asking them, what expertise do you think kids need today? And messaging alongside of our lead learners, our teachers, that, they're the experts, we're the facilitators. They have the content. We have the ability to mentor, to coach, to guide, to inspire, and share our passion for the expertise. So kind of like shifting that role a little bit too, and creating the identity as lead learners, as educators, that we're the facilitators.
Right.
We're the connectors. We're in charge of engaging the kids, and the content we're going to find from experts that are often external to ourselves or in the technology that we're purchasing, but our role is to mentor, guide, facilitate.
So just so everybody's clear that's listening, some language in there. Crew. Let's define crew. I hear you keep talking about lead learners, young scholars. Tell me why. What does that mean? And then I'm going to come back around to the kind of the equity-based dispositions of PBL. But tell me about young scholars. Tell me about crew. Tell me about lead learners.
Yeah, I mean, so crew is, to me, is the most important. I mean, you have to have a foundation. The foundation's always based on relationships. I don't care if it's in school, in work, and on teams, relationships are everything, right? And being able to have people be vulnerable is really what crew is about. We have young people that are coming from very different backgrounds, and we have adults coming from very different backgrounds. And when we sit in circle, everybody's at the same level. Everybody's safe. It's a comfortable space. It's a space where people can build these relationships, right? So once you're able to have that situation happen, what then happens is that the lead learner, right, and I'll get to that in a second, is able to really identify with the kids, and the kids can identify with the lead learner. We were just visited High Tech High, and one of the things I can't get out of my head is the fact that there was no difference between adults and young people in those buildings. None. They were all it just felt like everybody was
community.
the same. Community, correct.
Well, and we got to watch them experience joy together.
Yes.
Which in a traditional space often would look like, hey, please go back to class. Don't talk in the hallway. Those kinds of things. Right. These kids are like throwing balls in the hallway, having a good time, doing their projects, and just like really playing off of one another in that healthy way that I don't know, we talk about that you would do at summer camp or
Right.
at the park.
Totally.
Or when we're just hanging after school or work.
And
The fear of punitive it tends to be a school thing, right? Like there's going to be a punitive response to my behavior, right?
Right.
How on earth is it possible for anyone to be successful, right, when they're feeling this anxiety and this pressure, right? And look, I experienced it when I was an assistant principal, watching a young person who throughout this young person's whole life, right, had some serious issues with authority. And that wasn't because of me as the assistant principal. That stuff came with, but because I had that title, right, it brought it in. So when we're able to kind of build community and when people are able to feel comfortable and joyous, it becomes one big thing. You know what I mean? Like, and we call I want to get to lead learners because I think it's really important. We don't call them teachers, we call them lead learners because they're learners too. Everybody's a learner.
Right.
Right. So what we're doing is we're breaking down this whole stigma of teacher student, teacher student, lead learner. Right. We're all learning. We call our kids young scholars and young professionals. There's a reason.
Right.
Because we believe that these young people are scholars, and that because of our programming, they're scholars and they're professionals. Right. These kids are learning professional, content, professional skills. Why are we calling them students?
Sure. I mean, the systems and language of the outdated model were designed and are intentional to do the things that we seek to undo. Now you're running on the ground floor, right? So give me a little insight, and fairly new to the organization, in coming in and thinking about the young scholars and lead learners in this concept of crew, right? Like you're in and out of classrooms. What are you seeing on a daily basis as you're moving through the building in your role here as assistant principal?
With these concepts, lead learners or young scholars, I see a lot of accountability. And our lead learners providing a safe space in order for our young scholars to be accountable to the teacher and for each young scholar to be accountable to each other. If a particular scholar is mishandling this tool, you have another scholar that said, nope, you do it just like this, or correcting, but not feeling like, oh, I made a big mistake, or feeling embarrassed, right? The vulnerability that comes along with starting your instruction with crew and ending that way as well. You're connected. You're connected, safe. It's a place where you can be vulnerable, you can make a mistake, and especially for the lead learner as well. Because, when you teach, you learn. When you teach, you learn. And kind of dispelling that distinction between authority, teacher, I do what I say, not as I do. We as lead learners, we make missteps as well. Right? And it's important for our young scholars to see that, and for lead learners to, check themselves or have the students check the lead learner.
Awesome.
So it's really incredible to see, and we build each other up.
Right.
We build each other up in those places and spaces, and then translate what we learn into the workplace.
Yep. So let's transition to workplace. Let's think about our work then in regards to economic and workforce development. Before we talk about engagement of partners, much of this work, and we've had this conversation, right? The where we're at now is moving from human dependent relational work with outside partners, not only just here at BOCES, but thinking collectively about what does this mean in Ulster County. More importantly, we need to be thinking as the Hudson Valley and beyond, and a state. But we'll get to that, and we'll get to that shortly. So systems and structures that you all are thinking about before the actual work. to bring together what you talked about, which is informing our work based on those who are going to be receiving our students. So skills, dispositions that are either threshold for success and upskilling towards future skills that are anticipated and needed. Before we tap into those systems and structures, equity-based PBL. What are the drivers for project work look like that ultimately when we get participation from any outside partner, that we're asking them to provide us with so that we can take learners through a process. And I know you crosswalk those with global competency and other things. So give me the 2 to 3 minute overview of the system of learning that you're working on.
Steve, is it okay if I do the system and you give the example or an example? So we really have done a lot of work with High Tech High in San Diego to understand their project-based learning approach, which reduced down is about community-based projects and having an impact on the community or being advocacy experts. And their kids do a great job of that. And their goal is 4-year college going. Our model is quite different. And so we launch a project through an industry we like to launch a project through a work-based learning challenge and an industry partner's real idea or challenge. And once they deliver that message of what they're struggling with, what they're interested in, or what they want our kids to work on, or young scholars, young professionals to work on, we then bring them through as facilitators and lead learners, iterative design process, reflection time, and the opportunity to have a presentation of learning that hopefully happens directly back on that industry partner's floor. That's optimal. And we do that because we think that is the highest audience, the best access to expertise, and what's actually happening with employers. So it gets us closer to the jobs, the opportunities, and really the community. Because when you go to a mom and pop shop who manufactures or does work or provides a product here where you live, you get to see how people are really working and living. And the K-12 school does a great job of caring for our young people. But the system often doesn't allow kids to see what's happening during the light of day, especially in the winter months in New York State, ever with people who function in the greater society. We're just here, So those work-based learning challenge opportunities are massive to open the eyes of the kids of what's beyond their doorstep, what's beyond the school doors, what's beyond their zip code, and what are opportunities.
So before you pass it over to Steve to talk a little bit of kind of the systems of partnership engagement, I want to tease one thing out you said, and I appreciate your kindness in it in terms of our K-12 system taking care of kids. I'm going to make sure that I highlight that I believe the adults in our K-12 system care deeply about kids. The system of K-12 sorts, ranks, minimizes opportunities, tells kids that if they don't sit still, if they don't follow directions, if they're too social, we can go down all of those lines. If they're not easy to manage, then they're not good. And it's interesting now because as I look at the portrait of a grad and the skills and dispositions around it, those are all the things that our traditional system says, those are bad kids if they do that stuff. We got to send them to BOCES.
So I think, yeah,
I know I'm messing around with it. But
100%.
It was more for the audience to know, like, no, we're that serious. Like, that's what the system does to kids. And some kids are good at school, can navigate it, and they can find success.
Well, and so you've heard me talk about this before. That's why I believe that lean manufacturing content is the way is what our young scholars, what our young professionals, what we all need to kind of learn, those concepts of linear organization that are real, that are used to make products. So we learn that. That's good to learn. But schools shouldn't be operating in that way.
Yeah. They're designed well.
Yeah, they're designed well.
For that intention.
Exactly. But I want to talk about CTE and what happens at CTE. A well-run CTE center, ours, moving towards career academies and career pathways and choice maps for all. OSHA is at the core of those things, because in each one of our learning labs, we have chemicals, we have tools, we have implements, we have weight, we have electricity, we have airflow. There's a lot of things that need to go right in the learning. And so our kids get OSHA training, and it's a beautiful, wonderful opportunity for them to understand, literally how things work and things operate.
The baseline of safety, to stay safe in messy innovation, I suppose, is a great way to look at OSHA.
It's essential for us, right? I mean,
Totally.
when we're giving heat and flame and pressurized air and pneumatic devices, that's where we start. And it, to Karen's point she was making before, now I'm really proud walking in our learning labs to watch kids support one another operating safely.
Right.
I rarely see kids correcting one another because they've been trained in the safety procedures, so they're careful when they're handling equipment that they know has a high value or an important purpose in the work that they're doing.
Yeah. So give us an overview of partnership engagement structure, right? The model that kind of exists. I'm going to then turn over a question for you to kick us off, and then we're going to talk a little bit about where we're going. So tell me about partnership engagement. I know it's foundational in this work.
It is the golden ticket to program success in career and tech, period. You don't have partner engagement, you don't have career and tech. And this goes back to something Peter was mentioning before. Our teachers, every one of the teachers is expert in what they do. However, right, these partners that we have from the outside are experts based on the fact that they're doing it every day, they're seeing it every day. The technologies, the innovations. So the logic is pretty simple, right? If we engage outside partners, and we call them advisory boards, we call them steering committees, and we try to work towards something called institutional advocacy. Let me give you a quick example, right? So Jonah loves career and tech because he went to career. I'm going to use Karen. Karen loves career and tech because she went to career and tech, right? So she's all in.
They told me I couldn't go to career and tech. It wasn't for me.
Of course.
True story.
I get that, right? And I went to Catholic school, so who knows what was happening.
Different podcast, man. Different podcast. Yeah.
It's called I Survived Catholic School. I have the shirt. But in Karen's case, let's say that she's a career and tech, went through career and tech. She owns a business now. She believes in this place. She's in. She's helping. She loves this. Well, guess what? She got an offer to go work in California where the weather's a heck of a lot nicer. She goes. Transactional. We just lost a partner. We just lost somebody who could impact kids, right? So when you get to the next level, Karen's company now is all in, right? Now she's got the whole company believing. We have more support, we have more depth, right? But it's still transactional because guess what? Peter Harris Incorporated, which is based in Saskatoon, bought Karen's company. Peter Harris Inc. wants nothing to do with this stuff. Boom. When we get to institutional advocacy, that's when we have partners that believe so much in the work that it's an expectation. Right? And the way we do that, right, is through developing, it's crew, right? We're developing relationships with outside partners. And the way, the whole logic on it is we demonstrate to them a value add for their engagement, and we demonstrate to them a return on investment or potential return on investment, right? Any business partner understands that if there's a potential return on investment, I'm curious. And that's what we want to do. We want to create that curiosity, right? So I know you want to add something.
I do, because I want to give credit to our work and to what you have taught us and what you're saying. Through this work in messaging, the Workforce Development Board chair was first the chair of one of our steering committees here for career and technical education, where we talk and behave in these ways about outcomes and about the how and the why to create advocacy and to move it from individual to institutional. And so that was a great impact. But then when I was at another Workforce Development Board meeting talking about, employment training, economic development, and the things that we handle there, and I noticed that one of our other partners had yielded his seat at the table to one of his managers. I saw the impact of the message that Steve just delivered. Right. He was demonstrating, I'm going to make sure that my company is represented rather than I have a seat at the table.
Right.
My company has a seat at the table. And I'm really proud of the work that you initiated through PTEC that has come through our steering committees and this work building advocacy on behalf of kids having outcomes at CTE so that people are understanding and in those very meetings talking about the good work we're doing here on behalf of kids.
Yeah.
And just a couple of things on this, right? Like, going to go back to the Workplace Learning Challenges Equity-Based PBL, right? So the model that we use here is we have an industry partner one of our industry partners comes with an actual challenge. That could be an established partner, or it could be a new business, right? That is testing it out. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a low lift. Like if I have a problem and our kids are able to solve that problem, that partner might want to play a little bit more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So the partner engagement comes through equity-based PBL. It also comes through creating convenings. Last year we had 43 advisory board meetings, 43. And one of the things that I heard more than once, because I asked the questions, how many times have you guys sat around, have you all sat around a table together? Your competitors. How many? Never, just the first time. So what we did, right, is we created this community amongst those folks with one goal in mind, and that's to support career and technical education in the area,
Right.
knowing that the potential outcome and the value add and the return on investment is that there's potential employees that are going to come out.
Right. And that's the economic and workforce development driver. We could spend a whole time talking about that.
That's a
I want to pivot real quick over to you, Karen, to ask kind of a leadership question, but also just kind of personal motivation question, and then we're going to think forward a little bit. So you're here, you moved here, you're working here. This wasn't your only opportunity. What did you see? What did you feel? What were you hopeful about? Something had to be going on for you to make you had offers, right? So you were shopping for the right fit as well, which is important and critical. But you made a choice, and we're certainly happy you made that choice. What was it?
Just like you said, while of course I'm on this interview, I'm also interviewing the potential school that I want to work at as well. And I really was very much attracted to the emphasis on work-based learning, authentic experiences, having our young professionals work closely with industry partners, having industry partners see exactly what our young professionals are doing. I love that push. And how work-based learning has really exploded these past couple years, and the importance that Ulster BOCES put on that collaboration. Our students working with industry partners. Outcome, and outcome is real. It's real. We actually have young professionals, working at some of these companies that we have partnered with. We do workplace challenges and seeing that in real life and watching the students network with potential employers. I saw how Ulster BOCES really put an emphasis on that and an expansion in quick succession.
Right.
In fact, so that was very, very attractive for me. Innovative, technology implementation, different methods and strategies to give our students more opportunities, teaching our students in a completely different capacity.
Yeah.
I really loved it. It was very much forward thinking, and how Peter was saying earlier, putting the dignity back in career pathways.
Right. So I love that. And there's lots of places doing cool things. And those are things that are happening for kids. Then there's you. So there's that other side of feeling like, is this going to be the right place? Where you're going to spend, as an administrator, as a leader, significant portion of your day, your week, and even in your off time thinking about. There are amazing places doing innovative things where culture is not going to be a match. For me, for Peter, for Steve, for you. I'm curious because I don't get to interact, right, on a daily basis with you or all employees. Was there anything that you felt right in the interactions with the adults and the humans that you said, and anything that's reinforced that since you've been here? Tell me a little bit about the human side of why, because it's not just workplace learning,
Right.
and that's a driver. So I'm
Right.
going to push a little bit more to get a little more.
Okay. I received a very warm welcome.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that I did. I relocated from Syracuse to Ulster BOCES, and kind of on a whim, I got a place to stay temporarily, just in
Test
case.
drive it out,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Then before I knew it, I started looking at some long-term leases and things where I was received very warmly. I was received very, very warmly. I wasn't made to feel like I was some outsider. That, well, what are you doing here? And oh boy, here we go, another administrator with their own set of plans, with their own set of, so of course I had to come with a different perspective as well. I was encouraged by my leaders to build relationships.
Right.
Build relationships first. Get to know the students, get to know our lead learners. Try not to solve anything, just get to building relationships. I've never been to a job where I'm told to step back and
Hang out.
yes. What's that about? What's that? And I felt very nervous. Like,
Right.
you want me, nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Well, leaders are wired to work, right?
Yes.
So.
And I love the approach that the relationship, not coming in 100 miles an hour,
Right.
Bulldozing your way into an educational facility. So I love that. You're taking it all in, especially since we're doing so many amazing things. And it's really given me the opportunity to see how I could contribute to the amazing things that are happening at BOCES, Ulster BOCES in particular. The relationship piece, I feel welcomed.
Yeah.
I feel welcomed
Yeah.
here.
I'd like to give a little bit of my perspective of hoping from our perspective that you would come. So Steve and I really subscribe, and I know you do as well, Jonah, that you have to be a part of the larger networks so you understand the trends, the initiatives, and so you have thought partners. You can get perspective of others and know what's happening in other regions. And so Steve and I attend the New York State ACTE meetings and ACTEA meetings, and it's through conferences and communication and relationships that we all got to be in spaces and get to know one another. And I've not been naming names, but I'll name one. This fantastic gentleman, Dave Arnston, tapped us on the shoulder and said, hey, there's this fantastic person who I think should come work at Ulster BOCES. And Dave is the founding person for the New York State Trade Teachers Association. So he's a retiree who just continues to care deeply about how to make this be the best it can for teachers and kids. And so that's one of the ways. So I don't know if so hopefully that felt right. But Dave helped us to connect as well.
That's awesome. So we gotta shift and look forward. I'm going to give each of you a concept or an idea and an amount of time, because I'm trying to manage how we get to the end. Because I mean, we could stay here all day. Schools are closing.
Yes.
Snow's coming down. It's Friday before the holidays, and everyone's like,
fish.
What are you doing in there? Yeah. It's 3 o'clock. They're still talking about career and tech and pathways. So I'm going to start first with you. Future, right? Your leadership, where you're going. You've had some time to build those relationships. You've been told to pause. What do you see? Some opportunities from fresh eyes, from where you're looking. Give me 1 or 2 or 3 max, like ideas that you're thinking about that could be awesome as we're thinking forward. We're going to then turn to Mr. Casa. I want to think about the large vision of BOCES' role in terms of economic workforce development and workplace learning. And then if you close us out and give us a little peek into what's in store regarding kind of this dream of iPark as a location, but as a concept, really to build out a space that matches everything that you've been sharing. So I'll try to remember what I asked you to say. You hopefully do, but 2 or 3 things now that you've taken a look that you're excited to be part of, bring to the table, thinking about. What do you got?
I am really looking to bring to the table providing our young professionals with more authentic experiences through our career and technical student organizations, Skills USA in particular.
Yeah.
Providing the opportunity to students to see their them competing with other schools really opens up their eyes to see that there's a world out there, right? And while the competitions are, a portion of Skills USA, it really does teach our students the importance of the academic skills, their professional skills, and also their technical skills as well, and really reinforcing that collaboration. So more participation in our career and technical student organization.
Right, and that piece right there too, right? Like the magic in that, to me, all of those things you said are yes. And the most foundational business skill of networks, right? Like that's what showing up in those arenas are about. That's when you go in for a job and you meet that person here and that connection happens. That's a beautiful thing. We're talking about regionalization. You know my passion, my dream, our dream. We've talked about it. What does it look like in 5 and 6 years, when, not if, this plan is actualized for economic and workforce development? What are we doing for the county and the state?
I mean, it's like so interesting, right? Because I don't think anybody looks at it this way. We've started to raise, we started to kind of call the question on it, right? Data. When we look at data and we see that 25% or 26.8% last year of our graduates, our young professionals that are completing a program, are going directly into the workforce here in Ulster County. Directly into workforce. It's about over 120, 130 kids every year. We're the largest workforce development agency in the county, period. You cannot deny the data. The kids are out, they're working anywhere you go to a business and there's somebody who's from BOCES, right? So being able to get folks to understand that and understand that impact, right? What I really want to do is I want to get to the 60% who go on to college, see if they come back. We'll get there, we'll understand that data. But there's another element to it, our internship model. When I came here seven and a half years ago as a workplace learning coordinator, there were 9 internships. 9, that's it, okay? Last year we had 248, 81 of which were paid, okay? Which means we're putting tons of money out into our communities. It's economic development, period. You can't deny it. So when you're talking to industry partners, that's the language that they hear and feel. When you're talking to local politicians, that's the language that they hear and feel. When you go to DC and you meet with the Congressional CTE caucus, it's literally one of the only nonpartisan places on the Hill, because career and technical education is economic development.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And that message is starting to get out. And as we continue to build our model, giving kids more opportunities, giving businesses more opportunities to get working with us, we're going to see that develop more. So 5 years from now, I personally believe that in 5 years, if we can solve a couple of the issues, the barriers, which we can and will.
They're adult problems, so we'll solve them.
They are, exactly. They
Right.
are 100% adult problems that our kids are trying to help in work-based learning challenges, one of which is transportation, which is beautiful.
Right.
But if we can get to that point, we're not going to be putting 120, we're going to be putting 300 kids out.
Right.
We're going to know more about where this is going. Honestly, if you think about it, all the different workforce development agencies in the county are all doing great work. We call them islands of excellence. Everybody's doing great work, right? We're one of those islands of excellence. We need to be the hub. Because the bottom line is we have access to every family in this county.
Right.
Period.
Right. Listen, I don't disagree with you. I'm going to up your number 300.
500, 1,000, come on.
Say all students in Ulster County,
Yes.
But I think more importantly, I want to be very explicit with the concept with which you talked about, which is these islands of excellence. We recognize amazing things that are happening, but I will be direct in saying the current model of economic and workforce development, driven by 2-year colleges and adult-focused, county-led, is an archaic and dead model until we invest in the 20,000 students and the future of workforce. We'll be having the same conversation over and over and over again. And that brings us to a place where we're going to be able to highlight the why, the how, and what it looks like. And before I turn it over to you, it's not a zero-sum game. Right, it's about investing in the roots and then allowing all those other partners to plug in a systematic way, so we don't have the highlight of this year, 6 job fairs and 40 kids came in, no jobs came out of it. So tell me what's happening in a rigorous timeline in September, and we got 3 minutes and then we're going to wrap it up.
So. A center for all of our kids to gain employability skills, to experience joy in a way that will highlight and honor our equity-based project-based learning approach with work-based learning challenges, with partner engagement, a space that will have visual and spatial proximity. It will have open and agile spaces, glass front overhead doors that can go up and down so that we can move our equipment, our furniture, our people throughout spaces. We can host events. We might have an electric car exhibit one day that might be an FFA fair the next day. The spaces are going to be large enough with a forum and an arena and a lab for every program. I'm super excited about the fact that we're engaging with industry in a way that is allowing and asking of them, allowing their offer and asking of them, can you CAD out our lab space? Can you tell us what you think it ought to look like? Can you tell us what equipment you think we ought to have? As we've learned a couple of times over, humbly, from the teacher and administrator level, the lead learner level, we're not sure that we know what the advancements in the technology are as expert as we are. So we need the external partner to say, hey, so you're working on residential matters, which is great. That's the residential technician level, but we're missing the industrial technology piece, right? So when I think about how that extrapolates up, our kids, we need access to teaching and learning data analytics, the financial aspects of everything that we do from an entrepreneurial perspective to an employment or employer perspective. And these are things in our new space by inviting in the networks of support that Steve was talking about, the network of support that Karen represents in coming to us. We're going to have space for all of this to exist so that we will be a hub in our vision and our goal for our kids to have full employability, for their parents and families then also to have access to our community and adult education in these same well-designed, beautiful spaces where we have no barriers to entry. There's opportunity for people to learn in regionalized or world-class labs
Yeah.
that employers are saying, please go to Ulster BOCES site because we know they have the opportunity for you to learn on the latest, the best, or the one that they can offer. And if you get that, we will employ you because we are engaged with them in workforce development. That'll be for the county. Right. That will be a model that others will want to input and also comment on, which will help our growth. That will be our cycle of inquiry.
Right.
People commenting on the success or tuning that we need in order to accomplish that goal, first and foremost for the people of Ulster County. But it will be a beacon and a model if it's designed the way in which and implemented the way in which we intend to lead it and to lead it deeply so that people can come in and have a sense of identity in the space and feel a part of the crew.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's Ulster BOCES at iPark 87, the former IBM headquarters here in Kingston, New York. And I know, I made a pretty direct statement about an archaic model being dead and this is the future. And that is true. But this also represents, it's not a BOCES thing. This represents in this project, county economic workforce development, being on site. This represents a commitment from our 2-year SUNY being on site. This represents a commitment from our 4-year SUNY being on site, co-creating space and designing a true P20 system, just plugging in at the right places, honoring where relationships are deepest and most impactful in service of each other and for the kids. And I think lastly, right, that idea of an industry partner, an employer, economic and workforce development, being able to turn and say, Ulster BOCES is teaching for us, right? Like that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's access work, that's equity work, that's belonging work. Because if every child that enters the system as a kindergarten student is given dignity, belonging, pathways, opportunity to see that they have a pathway to a viable future right here in Ulster County or in the Hudson Valley, that they can earn a meaningful wage, that they can be a homeowner, that they can push on all the drivers that we know are not about access and equity. It doesn't make that access work sit over here. It's at the root of everything, which is kind of back to the beginning. All of this work is grounded in that. And so I want to thank you, Karen, you, Steve, and you, Peter, for spending this time and having a conversation about all things pathways, career and tech, leadership. It's been an awesome hour with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonah.
you.
It was great. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.